Hey, I'll tell you what, there's always something immensely important that seems to be happening in this digital asset space every single day, and today was really no exception. The HR 7356 bill that was presented today to Congress is truly monumental. The mere fact that it's actually being presented is really testament to the fact that digital asset space is here today, and it's meant to be taken 100% seriously. We're seeing the largest financial institutions in the world begin to take positions to manage the digital asset exchanges, or at least start developing digital asset exchanges. And now the U.S. government, as we've seen, is not only just planning a decision on regulatory clarity, but actually now they're reviewing a proposed bill which is also going to amend the tax code, how digital assets are taxed, and really overall how digital assets are going to be involved and brought into the financial space in general. Hi, this is Jeff with the HODL Report. Join me on today's video as we explore the Token Taxonomy Act presented to the 115th Congress by Rep. Warren Davidson of Ohio, Republican of Ohio, and Darren Soto, Democrat from Florida. This is a bipartisan bill, and it is, again, like I just said, monumental. The House Resolution 7356 bill that was introduced really to define the digital asset and make amendments to a number of really important things. Number one, the Securities Act of 1933. Number two, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Number three, the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. Number four, the Investment Company Act of 1940. And number five, the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. I'm going to put a link below, so if you want to go back and read each one of these acts, you can be more than welcome. You can go through and look at the different sections. I'm going to read a couple snippets from each as we go through the video today. Really bear with me today. I've been trying to keep all my videos to around 10-11 minutes. I hope this one doesn't go that much longer. You know what, guys, I'll tell you, I probably don't have to tell you, again, how immensely important this bill is. Whether it passes on first draft or not, this is history being written. This is the first bill of its kind presented in front of the U.S. Congress, and it's so important. We're bearing witness to the change of the global financial structure. We know that as the digital asset investor likes to remind us on a regular basis, we're witnessing the creation of a new asset class. Well, we're also witnessing the U.S. government discussing a proposed bill which is going to propel digital asset investments into the mainstream. Now, number one, let's go through each of these acts and the proposed amendments to each one of them. Let's start with the Securities Act of 1933. Now, their proposal is to amend Section 2A basically by adding a 20th line to define a digital token. And let me just go through. I'm just going to summarize some of the important points. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but in essence, it specifies that digital units creation and supply cannot be altered by a single person. This is referring to what a digital token is. It cannot be altered by a single person or a group, has a transaction history recorded in a distributed digital ledger or digital data structure, which consensus is achieved through a mathematically verifiable process. A pop-up just came up. After consensus is reached, cannot be materially altered by a single person or group of persons under common control. capable of being traded or transferred between persons without an intermediate custodian, and it is not representation of a financial interest in a company. Now, under a newly added line, item 21, it specifies the term digital unit to mean a representation of economic proprietary or access rights that is stored in a computer readable format. So really, to go back just real quick, I mean, you look at, they're specifying exactly what a digital token is, stamped into a bill and amending the Securities Act of 1933. Again, this is truly monumental. This is really, it's amazing. Just reading through this and being able to bear witness to history in the making. The adjustment to the definition of a security under Section 2A1. Now, again, I'm going to put a link below so you can go back through and find each one of these and read through them in depth. Now, I think it's important that we read and understand the definition according to the Securities Act of 1933, what a security or how a security is defined. The term security means any note, stock, treasury stock, security future, security-based swap, bond, debenture, evidence of indebtedness, a certificate of interest or participation in any profit-sharing agreement, collateral trust certificate, pre-organization certificate or subscription, transferable share, investment contract, voting trust certificate, certificate of deposit for security, fractional undivided interest in oil, gas, or other mineral rights, any put, call, straddle, option, or privilege on any security, certificate of deposit or group or index of securities including any interest therein or based on the value thereof, or any put, call, straddle, option, or privilege entered into on a national securities exchange relating to foreign currency or in general any interest or instrument commonly known as a security, or any certificate of interest or participation in, temporary or interim certificate for, receipt for, guarantee of, or warrant or right to subscribe to or purchase any of the foregoing. That is a long definition of a security, and I think it's important because we talk about a security and a digital asset in particular a lot. We talk about XRP not being a security. Now, that is the definition of a security according to the Securities Act of 1933. Now, this is really important because there's an amendment to security, and the amendment is putting in the definition for a digital token. Now, meaning that a digital token by definition is not a security, and again, this is really important. So such term does not include a digital token. I should have indicated that's the amendment. Such term does not. So that comes right at the end. So you go through this whole list of what a security is. Such term does not include a digital token. So digital token is now excluded from the definition of a security. Now, under an additional section, they want to put in the exemption. Now, there is an exemption to this. Refers to a person who develops, offers, or sells a digital unit, has reasonable good faith belief that the digital unit is a digital token. I'm really summarizing it, but is notified that, in fact, the digital unit or digital token that they've been selling is actually a security. Now, they are given a 90-day term to cure, and they must post public notice and take reasonable efforts to cease all sales and return all profits, excluding any investment into the development of the technology that is deemed reasonable. Now, these amendments truly set the tone. And again, they're bringing the digital assets directly into the spotlight of mainstream investments. This bill, again, is just, it's really impressive that these two guys pulled this together and are introducing it in front of Congress. Now, let's go through the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Now, under Section 3A6C, for the definition of a bank, they added custodial services to the statement, receiving deposits, providing custodial services, or exercising fiduciary powers. So before it's just receiving deposits or exercising fiduciary powers. Now it's also stating providing custodial services. This is really interesting. This really opens up a huge window of opportunity to the many exchanges that are moving into the custodial space and that now really have an opportunity to fall within the definition of a bank. Coinbase, Gemini, Uphold, and there's many others that are launching into the custodial services space. Now, under Section 3A10, this is again under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. They again basically restate the definition of a security and basically say the same thing. Such term does not include a digital token. It's basically just a full restatement. And again, if the digital asset falls within the definition of a digital token per these sections, that digital token is not a security. Now let's move on to Investment Advisors Act of 1940. Amending and adding, providing custodial services, receiving deposits, providing custodial services, or exercising fiduciary powers, again under the definition of a bank. Now, so let's go through and really understand what this means to be a bank, and really reading from the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. So bank means a banking institution organized under the laws of the United States or a federal savings association as defined in Section 2.5 of the Homeowners Loan Act, a member bank of the Federal Reserve, any other bank institution saving associations as defined in Section 2.4 of the Homeowners Loan Act, or a trust company, whether incorporated or not, doing business under the laws of any state or of the United States, a substantial portion of the business of which consists of receiving deposits or exercising fiduciary powers, changed to receiving deposits, providing custodial services, or exercising fiduciary powers similar to those permitted to national banks under the authority of the comptroller of the currency, and which is supervised and examined by state or federal authority having supervision over banks or savings associations, and which is not operated for the purpose of evading the provisions of this title. This is really impressive. You know, everything that is being put together. Now, the next one would be Investment Company Act of 1940. They're making the exact same amendment. Has the exact same verbiage. Everything is basically the same there. Now we're getting into something interesting. So we go from the Investment Company Act of 1940. Now we're going into the Internal Revenue Code 1986. This is where it starts to get personal, because now we're looking at taxation and how investments in digital assets will be handled from a tax perspective, potentially. So this is where we all really have to pay attention, because again, this is where it invests us all personally as an investor and holder of digital assets. Now, first on the list, as they discussed, individual retirement account investments in certain virtual currencies not treated as distributions. So at this point, obviously, if we're invested, bought and sold, there's distribution, and there's taxation throughout the entire process. Now there's an amendment to the code with a focus on investment in gold or coins. This is 408M3. This is the code that they're amending that has to do with the individual retirement accounts. Now, Section 408M has a list of approved precious metals and coins that are not considered to be collectibles and may be purchased with retirement funds. Now, an amendment in the code would be to change it from just bullion to bullion and virtual currency. So now virtual currencies can be added to the retirement accounts per this bill that's being presented. And that is then followed by the definition of what a virtual currency is. And so they define a virtual currency in the proposed bill as a digital representation of value that is used as a medium of exchange and is not currency. Now let's move on through their proposal. Certain exchange of currency. They state it to be treated as non-taxable exchanges. This is something that is significantly more impactful right now at this juncture than thinking about the impact on investment accounts for retirement accounts. Although retirement accounts are obviously important, that's more long-term. But what is really critical to the here and now is really the exchange of the currency. How is this going to be handled? So there's a change in the terminology of Section 1031 from real property to certain property. So let's look here. So the change here, the amendment, they're adding a new paragraph to Section 1031. An exchange of virtual currency shall be treated as if such exchange were an exchange of real property under this section, with a further amendment to change real property to exchange of certain property. So this is really important here. So now let's read Section 1031. Section 1031 states, no gain or loss shall be recognized on the exchange of real property held for productive use in a trade or business or for investment if such real property is exchanged solely for real property or like kind, which is to be held either for productive use in a trade or business or for investment. So this is important. If you sell a property and buy another property for investment purposes, no gain or loss shall be recognized on the exchange of that real property. And so now, based on the change in this statement, adding real property to certain property, again, an exchange of virtual currency shall be treated as if such exchange were an exchange of real property. So this is a big statement here. Then they go on, gain from sale or exchange of virtual currency. Adding gross income shall not include gain from the sale or exchange of virtual currency for other than cash or cash equivalents. And this is really critical because as we know, as we move and we buy Bitcoin and we move Bitcoin to another exchange and we go from Bitcoin to XRP, or Bitcoin to Litecoin or Bitcoin to Ethereum, whatever it might be, that transaction is a reported gain or loss. Even though we're going from one digital asset to the next, that's a reported gain or loss. And that's something that's critical to bring and discuss with your accountant if you are in that kind of regular trade, or even if not, if you're making movements, there is a perceived gain or loss in each one of those transactions, and that should be discussed with an accountant. But here, the point is that this will not be taxed. Adding gross income shall not include gain from the sale or exchange of virtual currency for other than cash or cash equivalents. Now, there's a limitation that they put in there that the sales or exchange of virtual currency shall not exceed $600. So obviously these are smaller smaller numbers that they're anticipating, but this is still very, very important. Now, overall, this is a real big step forward. Obviously, these are just the beginning stages. This is the beginning stage to provide regulatory clarity on digital assets. This is really that one day that we can all look back on as making history. Whether this bill passes or not, this is the first time the government took that first step forward to truly acknowledging digital assets are the future. The introduction of this bill is just the beginning of this process. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to give a thumbs up, leave some comments below, Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I think this is a critical topic to really engage in an in-depth conversation for us to track and follow and see what is happening as this bill progresses. Note before we part here, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not providing any form of financial advice. If I am going to give any kind of advice, then let it be this: do your own research. Invest only what you can afford. Invest only what you can afford to lose. And don't buy or sell based on the FUD or FOMO that's spread online. Don't listen to the media hype. Don't listen to the negativity. Follow your own research. See what they're doing right now in Congress. And they're passing a bill for this investment space. This is the time. We're all in it right now. I look forward to seeing you on my next video. And in the meantime, keep hodling your crypto.